build 8-story buildings, you know, within like 8 months.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's something that San Francisco hasn't allowed so far. But hopefully that'll change for, you know, for homeless housing.
Oakland has the geographical location for good stuff like that. You know, that was one of the things when I was running for mayor 3 years ago that I was talking about, and I would wish that would happen, because there's a lot of warehouses that are empty. You can build them inside of warehouses, and you got them, you know, out of the weather, you know, and it's a lot better. It'd be a lot warmer. The heating would be a lot cheaper, you know, and just all around. And some of the, right here on 40th and Martin Luther King, they have modular offices that are built out of containers.
Yeah.
And they look pretty doggone good.
Yeah.
So I was saying, you know, in Haiti, they're doing the same thing, you know. And there's by, what did I think it was 450,000 containers just rotting throughout the world, because when shipping companies get tired of them, or they leak a little bit, or they become old, they get rid of them. And right here on 66th Avenue, you can go buy one.
Oh.
And they'll bring it to you. If you can get it in your backyard, you have to get a permit. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get the proper permits for that. You know, I don't see why the city of Oakland don't open that up. You know, that would take a lot of people off the street.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and the rent would be a lot cheaper than a regular built house. You know, for $1,500 you can convert one of these.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of creative ideas at this point. You know, the tiny houses that people build themselves. You know, a lot of different things. I mean, you know, we want to make sure that people have access to safe and decent, affordable housing. You know, people have a human right to that fundamental shelter with, you know, bathroom and running water and kitchen and all of that. And we absolutely have to commit to moving towards making sure that everyone has a safe and decent place to call home. And, you know, our perspective at the Coalition on Homelessness is that in the meantime, you know, let's use these creative means to get people
and
on the rate.
We're going to ask you to put some numbers in, and we want you to tell people where you are, how to get in contact with you, how to donate money. We want to do the whole gamut, okay? And I'm going to let you do all the talking. We want to know how your organization was formed, when it was formed, and who formed it, okay? And I know it's been around a long time.
Yeah, we're actually
in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we're actually
87, I think. I
yeah,
87.
Yeah.
Oh, the brain, the old brain got it.
So, yeah, we're in our 30th year.
Yeah.
And which is amazing. We started out, basically there was, you know, a lot of frustration with the response to homelessness. You know, we have this massive homeless crisis, and it was kind of an emergency response. Homeless people themselves were not involved in that response, and we weren't really looking at those systemic causes. And so a group of homeless folks and frontline service providers got together and started the organization, and a couple years later we started Street Sheet, which is also an interesting story. We were invited to a Phil Collins, had a song about homelessness, Someday in Paradise, and he was having a big concert at Shoreline. And we brought a whole bunch of, we printed up kind of like little newsletters and brought them out there, thousands of them. Of course, no one would take them because they're, you know, at a concert, they don't want paper, and we ended up with these sheets of paper. And so we got back to the office with these thousands of copies, and some guys went out and tried to sell them. And they came back and said, hey, people want to buy these, and that's how the Street Sheet was born. And so we have been producing that. We're now at twice a month, and that has the largest circulation. It's the oldest running street newspaper in the country, and street newspapers kind of took off internationally after that. We were not the first. We were a couple months behind New York. We didn't know it at the time, but they stopped production for a while and then started back up again. But it's a pretty amazing, because the newspaper is sold on the streets by vendors who get to keep 100% of the proceeds. We cover poverty issues. We also, people learn about us through the newspaper and donate to us. We're able to have this kind of independent coverage on homelessness and really empower homeless people themselves in their poetry, their artwork, writing stories all through the newspaper, so that they can, you know, have this creative expression that also educates the public. So we basically...
About how much is generated revenue in ballpark figure, of course?
Well, you know, homeless and poor people in San Francisco make about, you know, probably about $25,000 to $30,000 a month collectively. Our circulation is about, every 2 weeks. So our circulation is about 17,000. We get printed every 2 weeks, and the papers sell for $2 each. So, you know, it varies greatly because some vendors just go out. Maybe, you know, we have an elderly woman that lives in a hotel, and in a residential hotel, and she wants cable, and so she sells street cheap, you know, so that she can watch TV for her basic cable package. And
so what's the basic cable package cost now?
Oh God, I don't even know. I think you could get the cheaper ones for like $25 a month or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then, you know, you got to find those deals though. It takes a lot of work. And then some people pay for all their housing and their entire expenses, and that's how they support themselves. From the newspaper, yeah. So we have one of our vendors here in the Mission who's able to do that and pay for his hotel room, and you know, so it varies greatly between the different vendors, and some people just use it at the end of the month when they're running short and they go out and sell it. So
some people out there really don't. A lot of people, like not just some. Let me rephrase that. A lot of people don't even know it exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I see it, and when I do see it, a couple of years ago, I really noticed it about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm behind time, of course, but that was when I really noticed it. And I gave a guy a couple of bucks, and he gave me a paper, and I ended up on BART reading the paper, and there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very well written.
Oh, good. Yeah.
You know, so your editor is very well in tune with what's going on and informing people of, you know, whatever they need to be informed of. At the same time, it's given a little bit of dignity and hope. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's you know, it's a dignified alternative. And you know, for a lot of our vendors, they do not have access to the traditional job market. So for a variety of reasons, and this is a way for people to, you know, make money for themselves. And the other big part of our work besides Street Sheet is organizing homeless people to affect change. And we've been responsible for creating over 1,000 units of housing, for massively.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, massively expanding the substance abuse treatment system. You know, and what we do is we just put pressure on City Hall. We create these campaigns. We do a lot of media work. Homeless people have a leadership role in designing the campaigns and carrying out and figuring out what we're asking for and fighting for. Not all of them obviously can be at the table because they're in crises, but we do a lot of outreach to homeless people to make sure that we can capture their voice and that they're represented as well as we can in the organization. So we try to talk to, you know, a few hundred homeless people a week, and it's really a very grassroots, bottom-up organization. That
they can tell you what to do. They can tell you their problems, and you know, they can pinpoint where help is needed. Am I right?
Absolutely, and they're completely ignored.
And that's the big thing.
Yeah.
You know, where are your numbers at? Let's put some numbers up, you know.
Yeah, so
our websites, you know, all the stuff.
Yeah, so all of our information is on our website. We're at cohsf.org. That's the initials for Coalition on Homelessness, sanfrancisco.org. We have a staff directory there with all the emails. We also have a way for people to sign up for our action alert. And so you can sign up, and we can notify you when there's a hearing at City Hall, when we need you to write a letter to the mayor, when, you know, anything that's happening. And also you can donate online. And, you know, we are supported by individual contributions, and that's what we rely on. And we need people to subscribe and basically become organization sustainers, where you automatically give like a little bit of money a month. We have $5 sustainers. I mean, we have, you know, a lot of people who are struggling who are giving to the organization, and, you know, a lot of other folks.
The big thing is a lot of people smoke now because of you know, psychological and social pressure, and cigarettes are an expensive item. 1 pack. Donate 1 pack. The cost of 1 pack, which is about what, $6 now.
Yeah, I think with taxes it's a little higher. Yeah, about $8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you donate 1 pack of cigarettes, number one, it gets you off the damn things, and number two, it's doing for somebody, you know, good. You know, it's actually something positive, and you should feel better about yourself. And you know what? The human psyche is kind of strange. You know, we're a strange bird community. I'm gonna tell you that. When we feel that we've done something for somebody, most of us feel pretty good. But it's double-fold if you do something for somebody and get off a pack of cigarettes extra in the daytime. That really makes it good. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's psychology of it. I read about that about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, doing things that actually prolongs your life. You know, you feel self-worth and stuff like that. The Homeless Coalition needs about $1 billion and a half. That's a figure I just came up with. Yeah. But $1 billion would be nice, you know. Am I right?
Absolutely. We could make
Kick
sure
some
that some
booty,
housing
can't you?
gets built. Yeah. So, yeah. And we, you know, it's yeah, people can learn about our organization online. And I think, you know, one of the things, a lot of people ask me, like, what to do about homelessness. You know, what do I do as a you know, a lot of folks in San Francisco, you know, big hearts, they're in housing. You know, I get the calls all the time. You know, the first thing is just treat homeless people like you would any other neighbor. Hopefully you're talking to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're introducing yourself. You know, sometimes people need socks. They might need stuff like that. If you're having issues, engage in conversations. You know, problem solve together. We're in the middle of a massive housing crisis. These encampments
It's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
$1,000 for a room, $1,000.
Yeah.
Not for a house,
right.
but for a room.
Yeah.
Between $750 and $950.
Yeah.
Was the, and I looked through the paper yesterday. Oh my God, you know, whew, too much.
Yeah, you know, those housing options that people used to have around sharing a flat here in the Mission or renting an SRO, those are all out of a lot of people's hands because the cost is higher than their disability check. The cost is higher than the service sector, you know, paycheck, and you just
lose them.
You just, yeah, and folks end up outside, and so I think that's one piece of the stuff. You know, there's also, you know, we really encourage people, you know, if we see someone who's in really severe psychiatric crises, you know, call mobile crises and try to get them to turn out. Try to connect, figure out what your local service providers are in your area, find out what they can do to help. That's another piece, but we really got to stop calling the police on folks just for their presence. That's not an
Well, you know,
response.
that creates another problem. You know, it puts a lot of frustration. I was looking at this thing, I'm not going to go into it, but when the police come, they're aggressive. You know, that's the first big mistake. The second big mistake is the person ends up in jail. And the third one is that you have a demoralized person, just, you know, no drive and no nothing, just empty. You have an empty human being. Once you do that so many times, and from what I understand, multiple homeless people are arrested over and over and over. And some of the cops even get to know them. And oh, you going to jail today for a couple of days. You know, the prison system, the contract prison system is making billions right now. You know, and homeless people are some of the people that pay into that.
Right, absolutely. We give a lot of citations. We're making some headway there. But last year it was about, you know, 12,000 citations just for resting, just for sitting or lying or camping or lodging or, you know, all those things. And
how many?
Sidewalk.
12,000.
12,000, yeah. So
who pays this?
Well, so homeless folks can't pay it, and so this is the interesting thing. So last year, what was happening is that the unpaid tickets would go to warrant, and then the courts would issue a civil assessment, and we got them now to stop issuing warrants, so they can't arrest homeless people for infractions, traffic infractions, which they were doing before. They can if they give them they could give them a state lodging ticket that's a misdemeanor, and they can certainly arrest them for that. But for the typical ticket that people get, they aren't doing that. And then
so who inadvertently pays for this ticket?
well, you know, it goes to collections, and that's one of the other things we're trying to do is move that away from a collections agency into the treasurer's office. Because, you know, there's a whole report that came out, not just in Ferguson, But we have a lot of fines and fees that we're laying on the backs of our most destitute San Franciscans, and they're unable to pay them, and it hurts them once they get a job.
But isn't that anywhere in the country now? It's a phenomenon that's moving and shaking right now, that people, poor people, people of color, people, you know, who are destitute, they're actually shouldering a lot of the burden where the rich people should be.
Yes, absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know? And let's tell it like it is.
Yeah, and it's a you know, it's a punishment that you cannot, you know, if you can't pay a fine and you'll never be able to pay a fine, you know, you're getting punished disproportionately. You know, if someone who has a lot of money gets a fine, it's no big deal. You just write a check and you send it in. Well, it's a whole big drama when you can't pay it.
Right.
And that's not fair.
They're gonna put you in jail at some
it's
point.
Not fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for right now in San Francisco, they're not going to put you in jail, but that's a good thing. That could change any time. You know, we'd love to have that happen statewide, where we pass that statewide as well. So, because it's just not okay.
Well, you figure 12,000 tickets on the norm of, let's say, $30 a ticket. What
$100.
$100.
$100. Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. And then
$100.
$100, and if you can't pay within 30 days, it goes to a $300 civil assessment.
So what do you do?
So you know, you can't. There's right now there's nothing you can do to address it, because once if you miss a court date, we're trying to fix that, but you know you can't go in and address it. You can't get a court date until you pay your original fine. So we're trying to address that piece of thing. And trying to make it where people can start. And you know, there's a program that we set up originally when someone gets a ticket, that they can show the district attorney that they've gotten services and they can get the ticket cleared. But they have to make the court date. They have to go into court 3 different times to do that. And for some homeless people, that's working.
Whoa, back up. 3 different times.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to go in to schedule it.
You've created a financial monster on this person.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you can. Yeah. So it's
digging the hole deeper and deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole runaround for someone who's done nothing wrong except for being too poor to afford a place to live, and it's outrageous. So we're trying to get the police to stop issuing citations. So we're trying to approach this from a bunch of different directions, both here in San Francisco and statewide. The kind of tagline is that, you know, a right to rest, like human beings have a right to rest, and if they're sleeping that range, you know, local policymakers, and this is the same nationally in cities across the country, you know, were wringing their hands. They said, oh, we don't have the tax base to address this. What do we do? What do we do? Well, they turned to managing the homeless population with the police. So they tried to push homeless people out of centers of commerce and tourism areas.
The police are the wrong people to be managing.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, one of the things, I'm not saying all policemen are bad, but that 20% of the bad boys is the problem when it comes to homeless people.
Yeah, and it's an inappropriate response. I mean, the police officers are really frustrated by it too. They can't do anything when they're responding to homelessness. They can't get someone in housing. We're basically just wasting their time. 60% of calls in this Mission District station are responses to homeless calls. And there's just
back up.
60%.
Really?
So yeah, so we have a massive response. Then we spent $20 million last year responding to homelessness. Almost all of that money coming from police. So that money could be spent on housing. So what we have with local policymakers is that they were finding they couldn't address homelessness. The managing homeless people wasn't working, right? Because the police response is a get nowhere response. So they basically had to let themselves off the hook by having a protracted campaign of demonizing homeless people. And they did this in a couple different ways. And you continue to this day, I hear policymakers talking this way. They're blaming homeless people, there's something wrong with them, or homeless people did something wrong and that's where they're homeless. They talk about service resistant, so they love to talk about homeless people saying refusing services. That's a super common thing for policymakers to do, and what that means is that for a policymaker, for an elected official like the mayor, can say, oh look, we're offering homeless people all this stuff and they're refusing it. So there's nothing I can do. I'm let off the hook. I don't need to take action. Alternatively, they use homeless people as a political wedge. So when they're trying to drive more conservatives out to the ballot, they put really nasty anti-homeless stuff on the ballot. So Sit Lie, which was several years ago, was meant to get Scott Wiener elected in the Castro. That was 6 months in jail for sitting on a sidewalk during daylight hours. That passed. We also had Gavin Newsom used it. You know, he did his panhandling, also 6 months in jail for asking for alms twice on the second offense. We had, that was an initiative he put on the ballot when he was running for mayor the first time. And most recently we had the tent confiscation, Prop Q, which was Supervisor Farrell trying to get notoriety so he could run for mayor later. And that was confiscating people's tents.
Wait a minute, back up. Say that again.
Supervisor Farrell, who represents the Marina District, put on a ballot initiative this last November that just passed that allowed city workers to confiscate people's tents. And they'd have to give them...
I'm gonna stick my foot into the fray of that one. I think this is a personal opinion that has nothing to do with anything or anybody. But I think the city has one hell of a good city manager right now. Her name is Naomi Kelly. I think she would make an outstanding mayor, and if anybody gonna knock my socks on that one, to hell with you. Okay, I don't care. I'm gonna voice my opinion. I have, what do you call that one, constitutional right, the First Amendment.
Yeah.
I think Miss Kelly would she's a very conscientious person. She's highly intelligent. She runs a tight ship, and she's a beautiful individual, and she's got a lot of compassion and a lot of passion for small people. And I think that's what we need. Mayor Lee does what I see him sometime, and he's pulling his hair out because all the stuff that's happening, you know. Really and truly, a lot of the problems with San Francisco is that gentrification is coming at such a force and such a pace that it's destroying a lot of stuff. And gentrification is taking prevalent problems in most of the cities around here, the big cities, especially like San Francisco. LA, not so much, but San Francisco, where Silicon Valley is right here, those people right now are trying to move out of San Jose and do it. When the flood last month, even more people are trying to get the hell out of San Jose because they're right there in that river area, whatever you call that thing, where the flood, and it's going to happen again, and they know it. So gentrification is a detrimental bullet in the life of a lot of homeless people. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, and I was talking about before with the politicians sort of using these political wedges, and so, you know, they don't get away with attacking, you know, going after Muslims or going after immigrants or going after, you know, that doesn't fly here in the Bay Area and here in San Francisco. And so they've chosen over and over again to use homeless people as political wedges, and it's really unfortunate. We have a lot of bad homeless policy in San Francisco. And in essence, if I was going to boil it down to one general concept, it would be, let's make it as uncomfortable as possible for people and they will simply disappear. So we create a lot of red tape. We do a lot of things that make it very difficult. And as a result, we have a homeless system that has, you know, a lot of problems and creates a lot of unnecessary hardship. So the city of San Francisco just started a new homeless department. We put together about 53 different recommendations that were policy changes to kind of correct some of the problems with our homeless system, and presented that to the new department, and we're kind of working through them slowly.
You're talking about Mr. Bevan Duffy, aren't you?
No, Bevan left.
Did he?
Yeah, and
he was a hell of a human being, you know that?
He was great. He was absolutely fantastic.
God, I've seen people in my lifetime, but Bevan Duffy, to me, it was, oh man, he was spot on everything. I mean, really caring, and I know him personally, you know, and he and I talked a lot, and he just, to me, he was overwhelmed though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, well, so he was kind of a mayor's appointee. He didn't have his own department. And so what the city did is they created a homeless department. They moved the stuff out of Department of Public Health and Human Service Agency to its own department. They hired Jeff Kaczynski as the director. And for the most part, the staff is the same staff from the Human Service Agency. So
there's some pretty good people in there.
There are some good people, but I think there's also, unfortunately, a really kind of welfare, kind of a classic big city welfare department mentality, which is all about eligibility. And if you're all about eligibility, you're all about basically figuring out ways to cut people off so that you don't have to pay them their welfare checks, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot of that left over, and they're moving forward with some proposals that are kind of more the same, that, you know, you have to fit this tiny box in order to get help. They're doing it with families right now for family shelter, which is really unfortunate, and basically knocking out a lot of the families who really need help and making them unqualified, so that, you know, it's going to appear as if they shrink the wait list for shelter, but they're doing that by shrinking the eligibility, and that's really sad. So we're trying to fight against that. We want to make sure that we have a system that serves everyone who's really in need and doesn't, you know, play these kind of games.
Well, you know what? Games are games wherever you go, and it's about money.
Yes, it is. And
it's about money.
Yeah.
And you know what? Now it's becoming about prominence in our society. You know, you and I are becoming like those people. You know, and it's not about race, color, creed in some respects when money is involved, where people are being suppressed. It's about the human element, in my opinion. You know, it's another human element is looking at us like we're, well, you guys are the middle class, so, you know what, just work your little damn lives to death, and we'll collect from you what we can collect and take from you what we can take. This is the mentality that I see in our society. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean,
the haves and the have-nots.
Yes, it's more and more separate, and the income disparities growing bigger and bigger. And I think that, you know, as part of this process that politicians have engaged in of demonizing homeless people, the way almost it's as if a lot of people think is that if homeless people are completely different species, like they came from another planet, or they came from, you know, I mean, it's this othering that is really profound, where they are not looking and seeing themselves in homeless people. And if they were, I think things would be a lot different. And so that othering that we do, that dehumanizing that happens, that, you know, kind of thinking separate is really, you know, is really driving a lot of the reason we have such a huge homeless population, and we haven't taken responsibility.
You know what I want you to do? I'm listening to you very intricately, okay? Boy, I put that word in there good, didn't I? Oh, shit, I messed up. There's one guy I want you to find him for me. His name is Officer Dennis Cena.
Okay.
He's a SFPD, and his area is right there around City Hall in the core of the oh God, the core of the homeless problems around there. He's one of the most compassionate individuals you want to see.
Is he a shorter guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally know who he is.
He is intelligent. He's articulate. He's what I call the people's policeman. You know, I mean, you don't see people of that level, and he gets no notoriety. And you know, I see him deal with the homeless. He'll walk up to him and says, "Hey, you know you're not supposed to do that. You know we're going to be on bad terms if you do that. So why don't you just not do it, and we can get along for the rest of the day." And the respect and the dignity that people's got for this Officer Cena, and right there in that public square around the City Hall Plaza, the guy is spot on, as they used to say back in those days, years ago. You know, whenever you need suggestions, or you ever need somebody to really bounce off and get some opinion, he would be the one.
Yeah.
I call him a frontline officer, and I think the guy is damn good. I mean, I've seen some bad cops, and I've seen some good cops. We got a lot of good ones out there who don't get the publicity and the notoriety that they should. But he's one that I will tell you, and there's a couple, three more around there that I've seen that I don't know their names, but you know what, they would be a good sounding board. Did I say that right? Oh, damn, folks, I'm getting there. You know, he would be a good sounding board to get out there, you know, and because, you know, this needs to be a total problem. And we're talking about humanity. The human element of living, respect, and dignity. And I always talk to you about, you know, dignity. And I want you to go on Facebook and look at some of the comments I leave there, you know, and don't judge me about by my mouth. I'm much more of a docile individual psychologically or something like that. One of them things, huh, babe? We're here talking to Jennifer from the Homeless Coalition, and we're talking some good stuff today about, you know, taking care of each other. And damn it, I always talk about taking care of people. Taking care of people. And I mentioned two people, and the other one is Officer Leo Nardini in the Sheriff Department. You know, these are guys that love people, they love what they do, and they love the city. And you know what? You can't find a better person. So when you got problems, you know, and if you run into some problems and you run into these two people out there, you know, just say hello. That you heard about them, you know, on this station here. This is Radio Valencia. Dang, we are out here for the people. Jen, give me an idea of what in the next short term that you would like to do in your endeavorments. I said that right. I guess I put that ments on the words, you know.
Yeah.
What's your dream to do? I mean, your personal dreams to do with all this.
You know, we would love to get to a place where when you saw a homeless person out on the streets, the alarm bells would ring that this is an emergency, someone doesn't have a home, and that our system would be able to respond, that they could get in a shelter quickly, that they would be housed out of the shelter within 6 months, that if you were in trouble and about to lose your home, that there would be really strong resources in place to keep you in your home, to prevent you from becoming homeless. And that when I called the city, you know, when I had a homeless person out front, that, you know, an outreach worker would come and they'd have all the resources behind them to put people into appropriate
and not
places.
The police.
Yeah, and you know, and that we'd have a flourishing mental health system that had plenty of places for people to live, where they weren't, where we had a flourishing substance abuse treatment system, behavioral health, where folks got adequate health care. That you know, we have part of the healthy, thriving city here in San Francisco, but we don't have all of it. You know, we need to bring up folks who are the most destitute, and then we will definitely have a fully thriving city. We can absolutely be the progressive vision that we think of ourselves as, but we're not there. We're not there if we have thousands of people on the streets every night.
Hunger is a big problem out there, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of programs trying to address hunger, but you know, it's directly related to economic forces. It's directly related to unemployment rates, to changes in welfare policy, where people no longer get cash assistance and they have to rely on soup kitchens. You can spend your whole day waiting in line trying to get food. So you know, it definitely continues to be an issue. There's a lot of working people who are suffering from hunger. A lot of kids going to school without breakfast, and it's you know, I think we do a little bit better on that front than a lot of areas, but there's by no means 100% food security. We also have a lot of people out there who qualify for food stamps that for whatever reason have not gone through the process, whether they think that they don't qualify, whether they're working, and that could be a big help to people, because that could be an extra $100 and some odd bucks to, you know, all the folks out there that are stretching those paychecks. You know, you get close to paycheck time and you're pretty much out of money, and you know, hoping that you got a little bit of food in your pantry left to carry you through. That could be a big help. And so we definitely have a lot of people who are struggling with food security here and across the state and across the country.
If you think you might even a little bit qualify, it's always best to go try. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, you know, they make it tough, and I think that kind of scares people away. But
they talk bad, don't they?
It's getting easier. Well, it's just, you know, all the red tape and whatnot.
Yeah, that's what
again,
I'm talking about.
That's the welfare mentality. That's the make it as tough as possible, and very few people will make it through, and then we don't have to pay out. And so that's why they do the recertifications that are tough, you know, all that stuff to try to drop people off. But that's changing. You know, it's getting easier for folks to get these public benefits, and so people should definitely give it a try if they're if they're struggling. And it's, you know, now with food stamps, you know, you just get a card, and it's just like a, you know, it's a called EBT card, and you just use it just like you would an ATM card when you're shopping, and it's not like you got to pull out the old stamp, you know, food book stamps that you used to. So folks should definitely try to get hooked up and offset their, you know, their challenges.
Well, you know what, life is very demanding. 3 people that I want to give a quick shout out to, since we're getting ready to start getting out of here. Myla Dawson, she has 2 kids, and she's in a donated older motorhome in Oakland. Somebody gave it to her, and she got somebody to get it running, and it's even running and registered. You know, I have never seen such a happy person. And then in Monroe, Louisiana, Michelle Taylor, fighting for her health. And then in Nashville, Judith Bryant McCoy, my sister. You know, I pray for them, okay? I'm going to say that. You know, people need prayer. You know, you get on your knees and, you know, ask God to, you know, if whatever religion you are, pray for this. This is positive thinking, you know, and I believe in karma. I believe in spirituality, you know, when people join, you know, as human beings. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about people taking care of people. And damn it, every time I go on the air, I open my mouth about people taking care of people. You know, treat your wife right, treat your girlfriend right, don't sleep around, take care of your babies, you know, all these things. And at the end of this whole thing is, take care of the people who don't have anything. I want you to do something for me out there, San Francisco. Go out and find that Officer Dennisina, and you tell him thank you. You shake his hand, buy him coffee, whatever. And speaking of buying stuff for people, it's better to buy food than it is to give money. So if you're out there and you see somebody hungry, go buy food. And you know, because a lot of them use the money for other things. We'll just leave it at that. Jen, tell people a little bit about yourself. We done had you all this time, and we don't know who the hell you are, girlfriend. Where'd you come from, and what'd you do, and how you been got all trestled up in this stuff here?
Well, I don't know that it's such an interesting story, but I wanted to do something social justice related as a young woman. And
where are you from?
Redwood City.
Oh God, what?
Yeah.
You're a Bay Area native?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, so I come from a large, noisy Catholic family. Probably one of the few like conservative families around. My parents actually both voted for Trump, I'm embarrassed to say. But yeah, so I ended up wanting to do something social justice related, and I applied for a truck driver job at the San Mateo County Food Bank, and they ended up hiring me part-time as a secretary for the Hunger and Homeless Action Coalition and the food bank. It was like a combined position, and I just kind of fell in love with the work. I worked for a couple different women that I found really inspiring. I wasn't as much into the food bank side of stuff. I really liked the policy work. I liked getting engaged in the struggle, and I found homelessness to be this intersection of so many different oppressions, and I saw it as kind of like a remaining, you know, I continue the fight because I see it as a remaining group that's okay to hate, and that as a place we got so much farther to go, and so I've kind of locked my teeth in. But so I ended up working down there in San Mateo. I ended up becoming director of that organization. I worked there for about 5 years, and then went to Central America. When I came back, I asked Paul Bowden, who was the director of the Coalition on Homelessness in San Francisco, for a job. He's a formerly homeless man, and I had a lot of...
I've heard that name before.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, he's
Paul Bowden. I've heard that several times.
Yeah, he's wonderful, and
yeah,
I had
very warm person, I heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And he now runs the Western Regional Advocacy Project, and so that pulls together homeless organizations across the West Coast to fight for homeless rights and housing. And so I had met him because we were at a funders meeting, and I was the only person who spoke up against the funders who were cutting our funding. Everyone else was being kind of polite, and I sort of, you know, called him on the mat. And so he said, "Hey, you want a job doing fundraising?" Since
Just
you
like
disrespected our funders.
Just like that.
Yeah, he said, if you come in and do fundraising, I will give you an organizer job later on. And so I ended up doing fundraising for about 4 years, and ended up working on substance abuse and mental health issues there, and eventually became director. I've been there for 22 years.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I thought you were about 35 years old.
Yeah, you're lying.
No, seriously, you look good.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, nope, I just hit 50 actually. And I got 2 kids. I got a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old. He just turned 13, and they're both in mission schools, one at Mission High and one at Everett. And yeah, so that's pretty much, I'm all about, fighting and for homeless people and being a mom.
And you got a heart.
Yeah, I definitely got some heart.
How do you feel when you see things not going your way that you like them to go sometime? Emotionally, how does that impact you?
You know, I find that I'm on my knees crying. I'm angry, I'm happy, I'm ecstatic. I mean, I go through these emotions like many times a day. It's pretty, it's amazing work, but it's really tough work, and but it can be very, very frustrating, just because you see what bad decisions are made. You see people blow it constantly and not do the right thing, and that can just be heartbreaking. At the same time, it's super inspiring because I'm constantly inspired by folks whose ability to survive, their brilliance, their they're rising up and fighting back against the severe oppression, the severe crises that they're facing every day. I'm angry and inspired, like, all the different emotions all the time.
We always talk about love. You love people, don't you?
I try to come from a place of love. I absolutely do. And I think that's
dedicated
really,
your life
really
to
important. Yeah, I do. I try to remember that when I'm at my angry moments, is to bring it back to the place of love. And I try to even our opposition, the people that we're up against. Organizationally, we really try to always treat people respectfully. We're asking people to treat homeless people with respect. We treat our opponents with respect. That doesn't mean that we don't challenge them. That doesn't mean that we don't criticize their policies, call them out when they're wrong, but we don't get personal, and we always try to go about this work in a really respectful way, and that I think really fundamentally comes from a place of love. Absolutely.
My goodness. I'm sitting here listening to all this good stuff. This is the Chief. We're on Radio Valencia, www.thoughtsofacommonman.net. Get to us. Talk about us. Get out there and tell people about us. I think we're the only real station here. We tell you the truth. There ain't no fake news here, baby. We don't do the fake news stuff. And we're here for the service of mankind. Thoughts of a Common Man. It's everywhere. And I'm the Chief Charles Williams with Miss Gina Alexander, my manager, my friend, my whip cracker.
And producer.
And producer. Yeah, some of that too. There you go. You want to say something before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just want to remind anybody that if they didn't get to hear the entire show, there will be a podcast available either through thoughtsofacom.net and of course radiovalencia.fm. And if you're a visual person, we also have a YouTube channel. All those things you can check out on thoughtsofacommonman.net. For legal reasons, the videos don't include music, but the podcast is the show in its entirety, music and all.
Yow. Jennifer, give your numbers one more time.
All right. So people can reach us through our website, cohsf.org, Coalition on Homelessness, sanfrancisco.org. That's the initials for that. And you can also call our office at 415-346-3740. 415-346-3740. I almost gave out my home number. Whoops. And you can donate online. You can find out about our meetings online. We are a very open grassroots organization, and definitely welcome folks who are interested in throwing down, whether you're housed or homeless, you know, anyone who's interested in working in solidarity with folks who are out on the streets to find permanent solutions to homelessness and fight to protect the human rights of people who are forced to remain on the streets. That's what we're all about.
Forced to remain on the street. Life is changing throughout this whole world. I'm the Chief, Radio Valencia. We love you out there, and we want you to talk about us. Put us out there and tell people about who we are, okay? And then you can get back to us. And you know, we're on Tuesdays from 10 to 12, every Tuesday, I hope, God willing. And you know what? Give some money to this organization. Get off your rear ends. A lot of people, everybody who did vote, I want them to give them $5, okay? Give $5. Jen, one more time, you want to put your numbers out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is COHSF, the initials for Coalition on Homelessness, San Francisco.org.
Okay.